What's going on, college football fans? You back in the Fan Addict on the Fan Addict Sports Network. It's your boy Coach I, and as always, I got my guy, the Stat Guy, with me. What's up, Stat Guy?
Hey, what's going on, Coach?
Hey man, Tar Heels on deck. We about to talk about it. Season preview for college football. Let's get it.
The fanatic, where we keep it 100, keep it real. That's the only way we know how to be. Talking that sports talk, you know what I'm saying? Straight out of South Carolina, upstate, A64. Yeah, the FANATTIC, the fanatic, where we keep it OG. We talking sports, so I call what I
All right, man. We are back in here doing another team's preview, man. Listen, just to let you know, if you're just joining the channel, we talk college football all the time. Whether it be Southeastern football, Pac-12, Big Ten, ACC, we talk it all. We just like ball. You know what I'm saying? Like talking football. Tar Heel fans, just to know, we will be following along with the team this year. 6 or 7, maybe even 8 games, just depends on what it is, so we can keep up with the status. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and jump in the comments, man. We love to interact with the fans, man, especially Stat Guy when he gets on his delusional train. So let's just jump into it, man. Let's talk about these Tar Heels, man. 2022 was going really well for the Tar Heels at one point, Stat Guy.
Hey, it was going really well until it really wasn't.
Listen, that was brutal. That the way they ended, they went 9-5, but it's the way they went 9-5. You know what I'm saying? They were 9-1 going into the last 2 games of the season. And then they take a bad loss, which I think is the reason they started to skid at the end of the season. They took a bad loss, in my opinion, to Georgia Tech, and then they lost to NC State, and then just got manhandled by Clemson in the ACC championship. At least they made the ACC championship, so that was good. But then they played Oregon tough in the Holiday Bowl, but took a L there too. So like I say, man, they were 9-1, and then a 4-game lose streak. Talk about, like, what does that do to a team going into the next year?
Yeah, I mean that's got to be brutal. I guess the one, if we want to throw some more victories out there, personally, I'm not a fan of more victories, but if we're going to try to lift morale and give them more victory, hey man, we if they go back and watch the preview show, we both said that Oregon North Carolina game was going to be ugly, based off of what we saw coming off the Clemson game, and they showed they had some dog in them and put up a fight. I mean, they still ended up dropping it, but hey, they got beat by one, and I think a lot of people thought they were going to get ran out of the building. So maybe that's kind of their moral builder. We put up a fight against a really good team
Yeah.
that a couple bounces here or there could have been a playoff team. So they showed some good fight there. They're returning a guy who will probably be in New York. So that ain't bad. Like
I
that's kind of uplifting.
I guess you're right. I didn't think about that. Coming off the bad ACC championship loss to play well against an Oregon team who obviously could score points, because even with the loss to Georgia the way they did, Oregon still was like in the top, 10 to 15 in scoring in the nation. And North Carolina, not only, did they stay in the game, Oregon only scored 28. You know what I'm saying? They were like averaging mid 30s to close to 40. So I guess that is something that you can look at, man. And then, going into the off season, man, you start talking roster. Who can you? This is the day of the NIL and the transfer portal. Who can you hold on to? Who can you bring in? Who do you not want to hold on to? The only, the only person we all know that everybody wanted to hold to, and every coach would love to have him, is that guy Drake Maye. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about roster management, man. They lost 18 in the portal, but they got 10 out of the portal. Some of the guys that they lost in the portal, I don't know if, let's just say, I don't know if they were tugging on their jerseys to stay. You know what I'm saying? I think some of those defensive guys, and maybe it's because the defensive guys wasn't happy with the system. I don't know, and maybe they'll flourish where they go. But I think they're looking at that new blood coming in on the defensive side.
No, I agree. The one thing I want to know, do we think Mac Brown was telling the whole story? You think some coaches were calling Drake May, offered him stacks of cash to leave North Carolina, or was he just saying some stuff to be saying some stuff? Like, my thing is, if you knew who it was, spill all the. Don't just give me a drop of tea. Spill all the tea.
I can tell you like this: Drake May's talent and gameplay says that people probably were trying to poach him. I mean, this is again the day of the NIL, and because the NCAA didn't really set in the rules, everybody's loosey goosey. Listen, I don't doubt that somebody might have got it slid into dude DMs. It's like, hey man, we got that NIL for you over here. Come bring that 358 yards per game over here. You know what I'm saying? Because Drake Maye can sling that rock. And you're right. I do think he's going to be in New York, barring any injuries or anything. Recruiting didn't go so well for North Carolina. They were 30th overall. I mean, in the ACC, that's good for fourth. But I don't think that's where they want to be on a year in, year out basis, especially, with how, like I say, with the transfer portals kind of hit or miss. Just because you get a guy with experience doesn't mean he's gonna come in and pan out. You want some of that raw talent to kind of build your core. Out of the transfer portal, they did get Devontae Walker from Kent State. He's one of the higher rated wide receivers in the transfer portal. And I know people hear Kent State, but let me tell you, as a Georgia fan, I'm telling you, Kent State sling that thing around, and Devontae Walker can play. So you add that with Drake Maye, maybe looking at a number one receiver there.
Yeah, no, and for me, I went with Elijah Huzzle, cornerback out of East Tennessee State. He was a for the football um, championship series, the subdivide for the Division Two. He was All American, was all SoCon, finished 12th for the Buck Buchanan Award, which is their Defensive Player of the Year. Has 12 career interceptions.
Ball hawk.
Ball hawk. And so, I mean, you look, one of the things that we talked about was how banged up, whether it was banged up or they just weren't good or it was scheming, whatever. The secondary wasn't good for North Carolina. Here's a known commodity that's done it for 4 years. Hey, God, I think that's a huge piece to add on the back end of that defense for them.
That's right, man. And we're gonna jump into that defense, man, to talk about the defense. You said it, man. That secondary had experience last year coming into the year, and I personally thought they were going to be better than they played. A lot of those guys have left now. But it's really, I'm gonna be honest with you. In my opinion, it's really not on the players, man. Gene Chizik was tabbed as a defensive guy, for the better part of his career. That's why Matt Brown brought him in. He had coached with Matt Brown before. This dude's supposed to know defense. He's been there now. What is this? It's going into his third season. It's time to produce. Can Gene Chizik rally the troops and get this defense to make a stop when it counts? We're not asking you to be shut down, because in this day and age of offense, it's hard to be shut down. But can you make some key stops and get the ball back to one of the best quarterbacks in the land?
Yeah, and going over their defense, two guys that I'm really excited to see this year. The first is Giovanni Biggers. He's going to be their starting strong safety. So, and it's like for him, it's like he's kind of the quarterback of the secondary. Mm-hmm. And so, what can they do? Like, can he help with alignments, or can he make some plays? Can he get a couple interceptions? Because that was the whole thing with, like you said, man, Gene Chizik. When you're considered to be a guru of one side or the other, whether good or bad, you got to perform. Like, I mean, they put you on this pedestal, and you've fallen flat on your face.
I mean, you're talking about they was giving up almost 31 points a game last year, man. You're not beating elite teams giving up 31 on average. If you're averaging that means some of the not so elite teams are scoring in the 30s, and it's like that's not great. You got to do something. You can't expect Drake Maye to just be able to score at will and outscore everybody. You got to give him a stop here and there and give the guy a fighting chance, you know what I'm saying? Because he is one of the premier players in the nation. But on the other side, to talk about, Drake Maye, who's he got out there helping him out though?
Yeah, no. So for me, you already mentioned Walker, the transfer coming in. I think that they're going to have a huge connection this year. I think more importantly is the guy that he has in the backfield to hand the ball off to, Elijah Green, big time running back commitment. Coming out of high school. He's from Georgia. Solid, legit college running back. Had his first start last year against Virginia. Went for 91 yards and 2 TDs. I really think that this is a guy that can, where people aren't just going to be able to pin their ears back and come at Drake Maye full force all year long. They can now establish a good running game with it. And I think it's going to kind of play off each other, where he's going to run the ball well, because everybody's worried about the passing game. And if he's running the ball well, it's going to open some stuff up in that passing game.
I
Also,
think so.
also has really good hands and is a great receiving back out of the backfield, which also helps with having Drake Maye as your quarterback.
That's right. And I think the running back depth is another strength of theirs. I think the wide receivers will do what they do again when you got Drake May at the helm. All you need is some, average wide receivers to average to great, you know what I'm saying, and he'll make them look good. But I think that running back room is going to help them out. But again, that's not been the problem because they were second in the nation in total yards of offense per game last year with 358. So Matt Brown apparently doesn't have any problems moving the ball down the field and putting points up on the board. So on to the outlook for the season, man. So for North Carolina, just looking over their schedule, I would say this is one of the harder schedules I've seen North Carolina have. You know what I'm saying? What games are you looking at as these premier games that can kind of make or break the season?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I personally, this might be the hardest schedule in the entire ACC. If you don't include Notre Dame and being a full-time ACC member, I mean, this is a very impressive schedule and ACC teams put together, conference and non. It starts week 1, the Battle of the Carolinas, game in Charlotte, South Carolina coming up to North Carolina. While South Carolina's the home team, I mean, it really doesn't. It's played in Charlotte. Can they get their notorious hot starting team? Can they continue that and beat an SEC team in the process? I think that's really, really big. And then towards the end of the year, they got to travel to Bobby Dodd. They go to Atlanta.
Which to me, in my mind, should be a win for North Carolina, but we've seen them falter down the stretch.
I mean, and not only a win, but like this with Georgia, and not making fun of Georgia Tech or anything, but Georgia Tech's not good. Like this could be Drake Maye's stamp on the Heisman. Like, just go off, son, go pass for 500 yards, all kinds of crazy touchdowns. Like, this could be the finishing product of the Heisman year. But it's like you can't think that after what happened last year. The loss to Georgia Tech last year started the mayhem.
Yeah.
Like, can they avoid it? I mean, and it's on the road. Like, oh man, the game's probably going to be at noon.
Don't you wish a noon game on the Tar Heels like that?
I mean, they're playing at Georgia Tech. What are they?
Yeah, that's probably going to be a noon game on Fox Pilot or whatever, Jefferson Pilot or whatever.
But you know what? What would be worse than noon if they're the 4 p.m. pilot game of the week on like channel CW40 or whatever? Like, come on, man! Like, how does that get Drake Maye views for the Heisman? Like, nobody has that channel.
That's right, man. But you spoke on that schedule, man, and talked about those two games. And then last year we watched them have a barn burner, like pretty much college game of the year when they played App State. They got to play App State, at least it's at home. But that first 4 games, man, they play y'all South Carolina, they play App State at home, they play Minnesota at home, and then they go to Pitt. Like, bro, I don't know who else nobody else in the ACC is starting with 4 straight games where they're playing 3 Power 5s and one team that plays like a Power 5. You know what I'm saying? So
a team that we say do not schedule ever for any reason.
If they can somehow make it out of that 4 games, 3-1 or unscathed, it's gonna be hard because I mean the bookends, South Carolina and Pitt at Pitt. Like Narduzzi, we know he's a good defensive guy. And if North Carolina can't stop them and Pitt's able to slow them down, that might not be a good recipe, and they're playing at Pittsburgh. Like that's a hard stretch right there, man. So let's talk about the ceiling and the floor expectations. What you got? Like, what's Drake Maye in New York, whether he wins the Heisman or not, if he's in New York, that means he's had another stellar season. Drake Maye in New York, what's the ceiling for this team?
Man, the ceiling for this team's 8-4. I wanted to say 9-3, but the ceiling's 8-4. They are who they are. Their schedule's brutal. It just is what it is. And I'll be honest, like stat wise, I think he belongs in New York. I don't know if 8-4 is going to buy him a plane ticket.
I got you. I mean, when we, going through looking at the games and, trying to kind of play win game where you give a point for a win, a half for a toss up and none for a loss, it's like I see a lot of toss up games on their schedule. Like South Carolina, App State. I think they're better than Minnesota. So and it's at home, but it's still a toss up. I mean, there's a Big Ten team coming in. It's not going to be an easy win. Then they go to Pitt, another toss up. I got them beating, outright beating Syracuse, toss up to Miami, beating Virginia. I want to say it's a win at Bobby Dodd, but going by last year, I don't know. Maybe that's a toss up. They beat Campbell, then they got Duke at home. Then they play Clemson at Clemson and finish at the NC State. Like, it's no let up for North Carolina. That's the thing. It's like normally you have a 3 to 4 game stretch where you can kind of okay, we only got one really meaningful game, but every week, other than Campbell, every week.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the ceiling. If Drake Maye's in New York, then the ceiling is 9-3. But because like you said, 8-4 doesn't get him to New York. But I'm saying if he's in New York, the ceiling is 9-3. The floor, he's 6-6.
You nicer than me. I got the floor as 4-8 because I could see the wheels falling off the bus again, bro. They could legit start 0-4. Then wait,
it's a possibility.
They start 0-4. Now what do you like? Now you talk about Drake Maye shutting it down because he doesn't want to get hurt before the draft because he's a top 5 pick guarantee. No, please don't come at me. I promise I'm not. I'm just keeping it a buck with you guys out there. Like, they could start off 0-4, and we see when the wheels fall off the bus for North Carolina, they fall all the way, and then the bus tumbles down the hill.
Yeah, my confidence meter in those first 4 games, honestly, if I had to pick the one game that is the highest confidence that they'll win, it's the Minnesota game. I think they're just better than Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota is bringing a lot. I like PJ Fleck as a coach, but I think they'll have enough offense for them. The other games, I'm relying on North Carolina's recent history of hot starts and Drake Maye's arm and the running back depth to get us get them through a minimum 2-2. Minimum. Like, they got to come out of that 4-game stretch 2-2. But like you said, all of those teams, we already know what App State can do. Spencer Rattler's coming in with the Gamecocks with Juice Wells with a lot of momentum at Pitt. You got a 7:30 game against Carolina. That's good. You got a 5:15 game against App State. That's pretty good. 3:00 game against Minnesota. I don't know what time that Pitt game is, but I hope you don't play Pitt at night. That's not going to be very. I don't know. That's just. Yeah.
But you know what though, and I think it depends. I mean, if they're 1-2 or 0-3, I don't care what Pitt is. That's the noon snoozer.
Noon snoozer. I got you
on the ACC network. But I mean,
just like we think they can go 0-4, it's a possibility. I say there's a chance they can come out of that 4-0. There's a chance. They started hot every year. So let's say they come out and they're smoking and they beat the Gamecocks. Then they turn around and beat App State at home. I told you I don't think Minnesota's that good. So now they're 3-0 with confidence going to Pitt. This game is probably a 3:30 game, maybe even an ACC network. I mean, maybe even a 7:45.
What is it? That ABC game of the week on
maybe
ABC, 7:30, 7:45 kickoff.
And you talking about, like you said, on reverse of shutting it down. Now Drake Maye's feeling good. You know what I'm saying? He's at Pitt. He knows he got a week off the rest after that Pitt game. He comes out of that 4-0. Now North Carolina's looking like something because those next games are definitely winnable. Yeah. So I would listen. If North Carolina fans, you get in the comments, let us know you're ceiling in the floor. I won't be, I'd understand if a North Carolina fan said they could realistically go 10-2 in the regular season. Because if they come out of that first 4 games, then the only 2 games you're kind of looking at, really, the 3 games you're looking at, and all you got to do is go 1-3 and 1-2 in those games is Miami, Clemson, and North Carolina State. So.
Right. And my question for North Carolina fans is, with this being it for Drake Maye, do you feel you have to get back to the conference championship? Is that where I mean, regardless of the record, I mean, obviously the record has to be good with it just being the 2 top teams now, but is it conference championship or bust? Is that what makes this a good year or not?
Let us know in the comments, North Carolina fans. Again, don't forget, we will be following along, covering the Tar Heels as one of many teams we're talking about this year. We'll see the progress, ups and downs. Make sure you come back, man. We like to interact with the fans, good or bad. Let us know if we're way off or if that's kind of what you were thinking, man. This is the Fan Addict on the Fan Addict Sports Network. For the Stat Guys, it's Coach I.
We got it jumping like it's that valley. I call my dogs out the pound, let's go eat. Turn on the Fan Addict, let's have a debate. Who really hold down the Southeast from state to state? What team hungry gonna eat everything up off they plate?